everybody out there in the bookverse, it's Stephanie, and today I'm back with a video that I love making every year, but it's kind of hard for me to decide what to put on it every year, and as you can tell, thumbnail, title, it's my best books of 2022. I did not read as much in 2022 as I have in the past few years, but I did have a lot of amazing books that I want to talk about. I think I have 9 books on this list. Let me check. Yes, I have 9 books on this list, and they are going to be in no particular order, except the final book will be the one that I feel is probably my favorite read of 2022. So if I did love multiple books within the same series, I will just pick the book that I felt was my favorite out of that series. I'm not going to be putting multiple books on from the same series, even if technically they probably would have made the list. First book on this list, I was actually anticipating loving this book as much as I did, so I'm so glad it lived up to my expectations, and that is Nettle and Bone by T. Kingfisher. This is a fairly dark fairy tale retelling, but it has an almost whimsical feel to it. It is very engaging and fast-paced, and it kind of has that quest feel to it that you do get in a lot of fairy tales. It has the goblin market, it has dark magic, it has kind of the big bad that you have to defeat to save the princess. It was amazing. I loved it. I love the found family aspect to it. I actually really liked our main character. She was very different, and I enjoyed reading from her perspective. So overall, this was definitely a win for me. I loved it. This was a Patreon buddy read as well, which, great pick. It was so good. This next one, I have 2 by the same author, which is probably not going to surprise anyone because this is one of my favorite authors of all time. That is Brando Sando, and the 2 books that are making it on the list for this year are Warbreaker and Emperor's Soul. So Warbreaker I read at the beginning of the year. This is a standalone for the moment, and it is set in a world where the magic system revolves a lot around breaths and color, and we have a few perspectives that we are following. One of them is a princess who was supposed to marry the king of another country, but at the last second, her sister was sent instead. So we follow her sister, and we follow this god from this other city. And I thought this was phenomenal. I loved it so much. I loved the twists. I loved the characters in this book. I felt like they were quite different than characters we have seen in his other books, and I really liked seeing the growth and the development of the different characters in this book. I do really enjoy that it was a standalone. I know more books will be added, but I thought it was really well done. It's very contained, and there is room for a standalone to be added, or for sequels to be added to it, or it can just stand by itself as well. I thought that the magic system was so intriguing. It had so much potential to it, and I think there's a lot that he could do with it in future books as well, or in Cosmere connections with the magic in this book. So yeah, overall, this was definitely a win for me. I loved it so much. Also, it had a very cute romance that I definitely rooted for in this book. And Emperor's Soul is a novella, and I thought that this was one of the most well-written novellas I have ever read. I just fell into this world and loved it from the very beginning. I thought that the story was so engaging. We had these high stakes, and I was just so invested in it. It was again, the magic was just so interesting and immersive. I loved our main character. I thought that the way the magic was manipulated was so much fun. I couldn't get enough. I really wanted more from this world, but I think it was beautifully contained within a novella. I wanted more, but I was satisfied at the same time. I would be so happy to go back to this world, but overall, it was just perfect. It was seriously one of the best written stories I have ever read. I loved it so much. I would highly recommend it. If you haven't read this book but you like Brando Sando, definitely check it out. It is set within the Cosmere. It's very short, very easy to read, and it is included in Nettle Unbounded as well if you do have that book. Next book on this list, I expected to enjoy it, but I did not expect to love it as much as I did, and that is The Black-Tongued Thief by Christopher Bielman. I found this book so fun. This had such a great sense of humor to it. It was funny and witty. It had like sarcasm, and it was like had very like dry sense of humor at times. And I loved the cat. I did not expect that going into this book. The cat was just great. I love the animal companions. That's kind of what it is in this one, but I thought the cat was so much fun. I love the cover of this book too. I mean, the black, white, and yellow is just perfect together. And overall, I just had such a good time reading this book. It was fun. I just enjoyed going along with these characters, with this story, and the different twists that came along and things that we learned. I think this has set us up for a great sequel. I am really interested to see where the story goes and where we go with these characters. I think I would probably want to reread it before jumping into the second one, just because I do kind of want a nice refresher on it. I think there's a lot of things in this book that they're going to pull into the next book, and I just can't wait. I loved this book. It was so much fun. I would highly recommend it if you just want like a fun quest fantasy book. Another author that made it onto this list twice is Ava Reed. First time I've ever read from her, and The Wolf and the Woodsman and Juniper and Thorne both made it onto this list. These were great dark fantasy books. This one kind of borders into horror, honestly. It is very dark, very intense, and this one, again, kind of borderline horror, but I think that this one is darker than this one, in my opinion. So definitely check trigger warnings on these books. This one, we're following a girl who lives in the woods with, they call them the pagans. They are able to do magic, but she is not. And then every time the woodsmen come, they have to kind of give up one of their girls, and this time she is the one that is given up. The woodsmen are very religious, very devoted to their religion. In this world, this kingdom is kind of being attacked from other kingdoms. They're trying to gain magical power in order to fight them off. We have a romance in here, but it is very dark, and I just really enjoyed it. The atmosphere was probably my favorite part of this, but I felt like the plot was also very interesting and intriguing, and I kind of liked seeing where we ended up going with the different things that happened within this story. It's also very character driven, and we get a lot of backstory on these characters, their motivations, their feelings about themselves, about the world, and their place in it. And I just overall couldn't really put it down. I read this book in a day and absolutely loved it. Juniper and Thorne, again, I read it in a day. I was just so gripped by it. It was so messed up in the most intriguing way. I just wanted to keep reading, see what happened. It was almost like I couldn't look away. I had to see where we went with it, what happened. And I didn't love our main character, but she was just fascinating. I couldn't stop reading from her perspective. Like, that's this book. I couldn't put it down. I had to keep reading it. This, again, has a little bit of a darker romance in it as well, and it has a very interesting magic. It's kind of like Eastern European folklore, and I loved it. I did not expect some of the things that happened to happen. It took me by surprise in so many places. I just was stunned by this book, and I absolutely loved it. Next on this list, I absolutely love this whole series, but my favorite in it was Foundryside by Robert Jackson Bennett. I'm pretty sure Robert Jackson Bennett was on my best of last year as well for his Divine Cities trilogy, but I love him. I think he's a phenomenal author. This series was fun. It was so much fun to read. I loved our main character. She was so great, and I liked the heist aspects to it. The magic was really interesting as well. It was kind of like magical coding, and I really enjoyed how there were multiple heists throughout this book. We were just kind of involved in a lot of action, and we got to know a lot about this world. I did enjoy how this one was very contained to the city that we were in, and so we really got to dive into the different politics around it, and the characters in it, I just honestly loved them all. It was a great found family in here, and overall this was just so much fun for me. It has the like inanimate object that has a personality trope to it, which again is something I absolutely love in books, and I did not see some of the things coming. It has a lot of great twists, and it was just so well written, so well done. I love this book so much. Another one in a series, but this one is the second one in the series because I did like it better than the first, is Valor by John Gwynne. Second book in his Faithful and the Fallen series. And this book is emotional. This book takes you through a wild ride of emotions. We are in this very brutal Norse-inspired world that is at war, and we follow many perspectives. This is a huge world. It has a lot of politics, a lot of things going on, and in here we just get really deep into kind of like the lore of this world and into the history of it, the gods, the different powers that are at play, and there are so many twists and turns to it. We have a lot of big political power moves that happen here, things you aren't expecting to happen. John Gwynne, I feel like, is not afraid to kill off characters if he wants to, and he's really not afraid to just do things that drive you nuts in here, and just I love it. It is so well written, so well done. I don't know why I haven't finished the series because I absolutely love it. It's amazing. And the final book on this list, which I feel is probably my favorite book of the year, is The Wall of Storms by Ken Liu. This is the second book in the Dandelion Dynasty series. This is a 4-book series, and I've read all 4 of them, and I have to say, I think this one is my favorite out of all 4. It was really close though, because I absolutely love them all. I think my least favorite is probably the 3rd, but I do think part of that is because I think he wanted the 3rd and 4th to be one book, but they were both over 1,000 pages. So his publisher's like, no, can't do that. But this one was just beautiful. It is masterfully written. This series is just so phenomenally done. It's so well written. It's just so intricate, and there's so much depth to it. There's a lot of like social commentary in here. There's a lot of emotional things happening. You get so invested in the characters and the world and just all of the things going on, whether in their personal lives or in this big kind of war struggle that is going on. I just felt so invested in this world. The ending was just powerful. It was a punch, and I thought it was just perfect for this book. I fell in love with some of my favorite characters. I think Gia is probably one of my favorite and most complex characters that I have read, and I absolutely love her. She's so good, so amazing. And also the gorgeousness of these covers. I do also have the Broken Binding special editions, so they have these gorgeous sprayed edges. This series is amazing. This is one of my favorite series of all time. I would highly, highly recommend it. But it's very complex, it's very long, and it has a lot going on, but it's amazing. I can't recommend it enough. Okay, those are my favorite books that I read in 2022. Let me know some of your favorites down below, or if you've read any of these, what you think about them. As always, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, and if you want to see more from me, hit the subscribe button down below and the bell icons to be notified when I post new content, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.